Hello and welcome to the Curious Minds podcast, where we uncover the mental game of cue sports. Join hosts Zak Lamb and myself, Matt Andrews, as we explore the psychology of competition, performance and the journey of champions. Hi Zak, how are you doing?
Oh, that was a bad start, wasn't it? I moved the camera.
That's right. It's quite good. It's like it's dancing around everywhere. I don't know whether to keep it or not, really.
Let's keep it.
Okay.
Why not?
That's fair enough.
Interesting.
How are you?
Pretty rough. I've got flu or something again.
Yeah, it's
and heat. Is it called heat stroke when you're in the sun too much? But
yeah, can be.
it's the best time to get sick in it because when you're in bed constantly, the only thing you want to do is watch snooker anyway. So
That's true.
I just spent every day in bed watching snooker. But feeling much better than I have been over the weekend. How are you?
That's true. Yeah, no, good. Working really hard and really busy. But yeah, all good. It just kind of like you just have to maintain your energy levels really and make sure that you're okay and stuff and things. So
yeah.
Good. Obviously this is a little bit of a catch up that I think will kind of hopefully help out what I've started, which seems to have caused a little bit of trouble. So no.
That's not like you.
No, it's not. It really isn't. I feel I don't know whether I'm starting to quite like it, to be honest, because like it might bring out another side of me. I don't know, but yeah,
it's that rebellious streak that we didn't normally do.
I think so. I haven't had that for a while. So, so obviously started a petition for really kind of a multi-purpose sort of one. Under no illusions that there probably is some changes needed to the Crucible itself, but obviously the petition kind of started a few days back with regard to keeping the World Snooker Championships in Sheffield, but hopefully as well in the Crucible, which I think many people sort of obviously see as the home of snooker. I didn't realise there's actually an old petition on there that was started a year ago by someone else.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so just as a bit of a reminder now, you can find that on change.org. It's the one that I've started recently, 2025, and it's the one with more kind of votes on it at the moment as well.
How many signs have we got up at the moment? How many people have signed it?
Yeah, it's a little bit slower than what I kind of thought, but it's the first time that I've done anything like this. And talking to other people, they said that it can take a while to get the ball rolling as well, even on something where you feel that there's a big kind of crowd or an interest in people behind it. I don't know whether I kind of do. I keep getting like petitions kind of sent through via emails and things. I know what it's like. You sort of see something and perhaps sort of think, well, yeah, that's a really good cause. I'll sign that later. Or you kind of think, well, I haven't got time now. I'm sure loads of other people will sign it anyway, sort of thing. And I've realized a lot through starting this for the first time is that, if it's in front of you, if you care about it, put your name down, really. I think that's a message that I'm going to be trying to get out during this conversation as much as I know there's different views on it. My personal view myself is that it's really important to kind of show that there's an interest and a concern about it. It doesn't really matter in a way what A, B, and C kind of scenarios are after that. But the main thing is to show that there is public interest and public concern on what might happen to the World Championships, whether it's about keeping it at the Crucible, whether it's about it traveling around the world. We've got an opportunity, or we could have an opportunity and a chance to actually kind of say, no matter what our opinions are individually, of kind of what we'd like to happen to it, and hopefully have a little bit of a word on what direction it sort of takes and to keep, the atmosphere and the things that we all like about it, whatever shape or form that takes. Personally, because of personal history and the romance side, and I know obviously working with a lot of younger players, everyone I've spoken to, young people, they whether it's I always want to win the World Championships at the World Crucible one day, or
Yeah.
I hope I win it before it moves anywhere. You know, players at all different levels. So even people that have just recently kind of got back onto the tour are saying the same, really, is, well, you know, I'd like to, you know, obviously the dream is to win it one day as a player. If I was to win it, I'd love that to be at the Crucible, you know, before it goes anywhere. So whatever shape or form you kind of look at it, really, that's, you know, a lot of people have obviously got an interest and a passion about it, because that's what we've grown up with, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, I think when you see it on TV and you see not even just the Crucible, you know, like the kind of greenhousey place next to it where Hazel and the commentators
Yeah,
often
Winter
sit.
Gardens, yeah.
Yeah, Winter Gardens. So I couldn't think of his name. And when you walk across like the pavement, that journey in itself, the city of Sheffield kind of makes it. It reminds me a little bit. This might be a bad analogy for those who are worldwide, but it reminds me a bit of like Blackpool Illuminations. Like it's just iconic to that unique venue. And
Yeah,
you go there every single year at least once because you just want to be a part of it.
yeah,
And if you moved it becomes an entity of its own. It's no longer what was iconic about that venue.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think there's a lot of pros to staying. There's also quite a few pros to leaving that need to be considered. And I think if I was Barry Hearn, I'd be thinking about Sheffield Council's commitment to the long-term vision of snooker, not just Sheffield, but also to the sport of snooker.
Right, okay.
You'd want to have the council on side, and you want them to be upholding the same values that World Snooker hold in terms of what they want the World Championship to be.
Yeah,
You wouldn't just want it to be a venue that sticks around because of history, because
no,
there's plenty of things that are there historically that could have moved and could have become bigger and better. So Sheffield need to have that vision of making it bigger and better.
yeah,
But at the same time, I certainly don't want it to leave Sheffield. I think it's got that iconic feel. And I think you're right. Anybody who wants to win, or even as a spectator, anybody who wants to go to the Crucible wants to go to Sheffield. They
yeah,
don't want to. They don't want to go to. I don't. Anyway, I mean, some of the suggestions like Saudi Arabia. I think that's a terrible idea. Um, even if you was to take it away from the Crucible, I'd want it to stay preferably in Sheffield. Just go to a different,
yeah.
maybe bigger venue, call it the new Crucible or something along them lines. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about like? I'm with you. I think it has to stay in Sheffield. I know you feel the same way about that. But what are your views on the growth of it? And what should Sheffield Council do to enable World Snooker to be like, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for our sport for the World Championship?
Sure, I've got so many ideas, really, and I think currently we all know what sort of situation, or we all kind of believe what situation local councils and cities and things are in, sort of at the moment, and have been, you know, for quite a while. So a lot of them are in special measures. Some of them, you know, are on the verge of going bankrupt. Apparently, you know, I think some couple have, perhaps. So it might not be. I think the biggest thing from Sheffield is to show that they obviously kind of want it, which I believe that they kind of are in different ways. They're kind of showing that. It's such an important thing to Sheffield. I believe there's an increase of like about 12,000 visitors during those 2 weeks. I think it brings in you know, kind of well over £4 million, I think, during that time as well. And then you've obviously got all the TV figures and viewings and everything else behind it. I think it's probably going to take, obviously, you know, an injection of a greater amount of funding from somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm not in those circles, and I've never really had to deal with that sort of thing. So, but I think that's all possible. I think it's about realizing and acknowledging, and it's probably those authorities at the top, including like Barry Hearn, people like that, of the value that Sheffield provides the tournament. You know, we should all know what value the tournament gives Sheffield, but it's the other way around as well. And I think that value can easily be undermined, really, or undervalued. Of where, like you said, visitors in other countries. I've spoken to so many people from like Portugal, China in the past, and Australia. Yes, there's people that go, well, it's not fair. It should be nearer to us and things and
Yeah.
bits. But there's an awful lot of people that for years have gone, do you know what? I've come over to England without even tickets for the Crucible, and I've sat in the Winter Gardens or I've sat in the square there, watched it on the screen because I want to be in that city and I want to be around the venue. And they've been more than happy to travel and to do that. And they don't want to go anywhere else. It's like, well, no, that's our pilgrimage to Sheffield at that time of the year for the World Championships. As you know, I kind of was working in Ronnie's shop over the last 4 or 5 years when that's been running, and the amount of people that come into there and from all around the world and talk about how they love, sometimes it's there obviously the first time that they've ever been, and the excitement and everything else that they've got of going and being in the city. I think that square in the middle and the Winter Gardens one end and the Crucible the other, unless you went and built that somewhere else, you can't get that. It seems like a perfect kind of setup.
It does, yeah.
With the bars and the restaurants and things nearby as well. Yes, there could be improvements and things. Of course, there could. In the long term, I don't think this isn't going to be a short-term fix. I don't think it can be. I don't think anyone can kind of go to Barry, look, we've got a 2 to 5 year plan here of, how we would keep hold and what we would do. It's got to be a long-term plan, in my opinion, that is future protected as well. The growth is protected as where, there's the plan in there of how do we continue growing after like 5 to 10 years for another 20, 30, 40 years. How do we kind of plan to up the numbers in the future so it stays in the city? And I think it's got to be a long-term thing. So in my mind, I've got the ideas of, I think it'll be outside investments. It's probably got to be. I can't really understand why, if Saudi and places like that are interested. We've got football stadiums over here.
Yeah.
Named after big businesses, different countries, all sorts, and governments. I would be, if it was me, I feel without the, the other knowledge that other people have got probably is, look, okay, you're interested in the worlds, but that, for our opinion, should stay here. We're a bit protective of that. It's got a huge value to it, but do you want to invest in the worlds as well as a bigger tournament in your own country that, you can have obviously your name and everything else on both, which will encourage then hopefully people to, first of all, recognize that support and help and build that relationship with whatever country, is involved. Which I know there's a lot of politics involved around China and Saudi as well. So I think that might help that to some degree. And it would also promote the other, bigger tournament that was being held in the other country. And for me, that would, I can't see why that couldn't be possible. Other than that, I think, and hopefully that would develop the Crucible. Other than that, I would like to see either another purpose-built kind of building in Sheffield, so it stays in Sheffield. Hopefully there's lots of ways these days. There was a new stadium in Manchester where I know it had some teething issues to start off with, but the whole design was about, I think that was like 20-odd thousand people. But the whole design as like a theatre and an entertainment space is to keep the acoustics in the building. It's got steeper sides, so people are near to the focus on the stage. A smaller version of that I think would be brilliant. That would hold, I don't know. I know Barry's looking for like 2,000, something like that, but perhaps I don't know, 3, 4, 5,000 people. And then I think then other steps, isn't it, is hopefully keeping it in the country for a start. And then, if it, I'm not wholly against it traveling around the world. I think that's a good idea. But
I think if we did it continent by continent, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I don't want that. I want it to stay in the UK. So If it was to go traveling, I think they'd have to do it as a continent by continent base. I
Yeah.
just think it's a terrible idea.
Mm.
The reason I think it's a terrible idea is because I'm not sure other countries could get the pull that the UK do. I don't think you'd have would you have the same backing from the TV companies? Obviously, you would for Eurosport, but BBC stay as involved because, as far as I'm aware, BBC only air UK related TV snooker tournaments. I don't think there's a single tournament that they air that's outside the UK off the top of my head. I think ITV sometimes do, but not BBC.
No, I think you're probably right there. I think as well, BBC, isn't it? They've agreed that, they're going to carry on until 27. And that's obviously when the Crucible kind of agreement is up as well.
It's a big time period for snooker, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's a bit worrying because, I can understand that. And I wish I'd started this a year ago when I very first thought about it, to be honest. That was when
could have teamed up with the other geezer who did his petition.
Yeah. And I hadn't noticed that or realized that at all. So that's when I, would have liked to have started. I feel like I should. Barry's obviously recently come out and said that he wants some sort of plan or an answer by the end of this year. So we're not, it was always inevitable that he's not going to wait until 27 to sort out what's going on, because he can't. You need to plan, plan ahead, whoever you are really. So have got to act fairly quick. I know there's meetings sort of coming up that I've been kind of informed about. Petition wise, that's kind of the thinking behind it. It's not really about the ins and outs of where does it go, what happens to it. To start off with, for myself, it's more, let's get our names down so we're showing an interest and that the public are bothered either way of what happens with it, because then that's a start then. I don't really kind of want, because someone said to me the other day, oh, they've got these meetings coming up, and I'm sure they'll mention that there's a petition there. We're at the stage of where it can go either way at the minute, because yes, there's a petition there that someone can bring up and say, oh, we've got, there is a petition there as well. And then you've got, some people would say, yeah, but it's only got a couple of hundred people signed up.
Exactly, yeah.
So
you'd want about 10,000, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah. To make a real impact, it's very, it's going to be very hard to get to there, unless but you're looking at 100,000 sort of signatures. But if you get 5,000, 10,000, at least then, if you kind of imagine 5,000, 10,000 people stood outside the Crucible, this weekend, perhaps, and can imagine that, then that people are interested and bothered, don't you? And if you've got that in signatures, at least someone around the table can kind of go, okay, well, they haven't got these big figures, but there's still 10,000 people there that have signed up.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people forget about Sheffield is like locality is perfect.
Yeah.
You get off the train, you're there within 10 minutes. If you go to the qualifiers, Ponge Forge, and it wasn't Ponge Forge, it hasn't been Ponge Forge for a while, it's the English Institute this year. Is that, but both of them are sometimes used for events, but not for the Worlds. But the English Institute is a tram away from, you literally get off a train and get on the tram and you're there in 10 minutes. And that's where the qualifiers were.
Well, sorry to butt in, but
no, do.
It's another part of what goes on at the Crucible, because I don't think they really make the most of what happens at the Institute of Sport either.
Yeah,
great opportunity for anyone to go along and see. You've got obviously some of the best amateurs there. You've got people that are trying to hold on to staying on tour and things like that and stuff. Great opportunity, great venue, great place to go and watch those qualifiers and people play snooker. And I think as well, only down the road, you've got that anticipation then of knowing that the Crucible is just down the road, just out of reach, if you like. Sometimes it feels. And I think that's the build up to that whole tournament. And I think the city really is
longer than 17 days, isn't it? When you put into perspective,
for us as well. So
even Kyron mentioned how long the media hall was for. That's longer than 17 days. It is.
Yeah.
When you look at the Worlds, for some, I'm thinking of one player that I worked with this year. I think it was 2 months because he didn't have the. I think his last tournament was end of February, early March because he hadn't qualified for the last two. So at which point you've got like literally 6 to 8 weeks only building for the Worlds.
Yeah.
That's from a player's perspective. You look at it from a media and a city perspective, it's even more. You can see it. You can see everybody talking about it as soon as the Masters is on. What's the next event? The Worlds is next. You know, it's this big kind of media stream. I do wonder, would it mean as much and would it have the same level of impact if it wasn't in the UK?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't at Sheffield. But then I also, you know, before we kind of start looking at bringing this specific segment to a close, I've got to play devil advocate with you, Matt. What if Sheffield Council turned around and said, no, we want to keep it how it is, we're not making any changes?
I would kind of understand that, because there's an awful lot of supporters and fans of the sport that don't want it to change either. There's a little bit of me that feels very similar to, you know, it's a magical place to go to. There's people that will say, you know, I find it so hard to get tickets to the matches that I actually want to see. You know, it is possible to get tickets there. There was, you know, you see empty seats, you see some tickets online and things where people think, well, actually, I don't want to go and see those players play, so I'll put my, you know, my ticket back on the system. So it is possible to go there, and I know there's disappointment for a lot of people that they can't go there on, you know, for like the final perhaps and things like that.
Yeah.
Or to see a specific player that they want to. And there's two parts of me really. I'm a bit 50-50 on that, because there's a part of me that goes, it's a magical place. You work so hard, or some people work so hard to get there, that when they get there, that's all part of the experience. And it's wow, like I've made it. Like I've seen a post on Facebook and that today of people going like, wow, you know, it's 30 years I've waited to come here. And it's been a journey for them, and it's been difficult, but they're so made up that they've got there, and that's the magical part of it. Whereas if it was easy, if we could all turn up to, if we all turn up to Wembley Stadium, you know, and it's easy to get a ticket and it's easy to go and watch the event that we want to go and see, and we can go there every year without a worry about it, or if, you know, we haven't got to, you know, have any concern, like it loses something, doesn't it? You know, it's not,
the anticipation isn't the same.
No. So there's that side of it. But I answering your question properly, I think everything does need to change. We can't kind of get away from that. We might not like all the changes that take place at times. I do think that the building needs to kind of adapt if it can. You know,
it needs to evolve.
Yeah,
I think.
You know, and we do need, you know, it does need to perhaps be more seating and more options for people to kind of go and watch and that sort of stuff. So the sport generates that money. I do think there's a little bit that they're missing of, you can kind of use that actually in a positive way to promote it, to make it that special thing.
Yes.
And the sport grows out from, and that's like your center and your core really, you know, the sport grows out from even more. But in another way, I do feel, you know, if Sheffield Council were to say that, then I'd be a little bit concerned and worried, because, you know, how do you future-proof yourself, you know, in 10 years' time? You know, 50...
I think the one argument that always sticks out for me is if the World Championship could get to, I'm just going to throw out a number, let's say 3,000 seats, and let's say it could make an extra £10,000 a day, so an extra £170,000 at the end of the event. That £170,000 could be groundbreaking for the amateur game or for the lower ranked players in terms of like a £5,000 bonus each year. Not that it'd be used for that, but I'm just using it as an example. And when you think that a change of venue could provide that structural kind of that interconnected link between a new venue providing so much support to the lower levels, that infrastructural change, that's the word I couldn't think of, sometimes it makes sense. It's like, okay, well, if you could do that and you could use the money for that, that's fine.
Yeah.
However, would the money be used for that? Could we get that level of extra financial support from making a change? And is it worth losing a legacy? Does losing the legacy actually harm is that what harms the sport more than, you make the change, you get extra 3,000 seats, and then no one turns up because they turned up for the legacy in the first place.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an easy decision. I think loads of us would love them to just expand it, if possible, get an extra 500 seats in, have it at 1,500, and go from there.
Yeah.
But there is, and I realize it's complex and it's complicated and it's a two-way system. Both parties have to want the same thing.
Yeah.
I personally feel like my opinion is I don't think it's going to be there much longer, and it's not because I don't want it to be. I want it to be there.
Yeah.
I just feel that there's money to be made, and Sheffield Council probably won't be able to offer what Barry Hearn is asking when he comes out. And I think Barry Hearn will make a decision that's for the greater good of snooker. But I'm hoping in my heart of hearts that that's not the case, and that we can get like a solution that makes sense for both Sheffield and for world snooker.
Yeah, my big worry is like there's a bit of a, like, I always remember, and it stuck in my head when Barry that day years and years ago, when he kind of took over and stuff, it was like a case of, if I'm making money, you're making money.
Yeah.
And that's always the thing that's stuck in my mind, for years, really. And I think my main worry is where you said, like, doing it for the greater good of the sport is it really going to be the longer lasting greater good of the sport?
That's it, yeah.
Would it be a quick fix of, you look at like the way boxing's gone and things like that, where yes, there's millions and millions of pounds involved, but it's ended up being where the fans and the supporters are going, well, what is this? It's kind of farcical now. It's lost the the kind of real things in it that we were passionate and liked about. Because there's, boxing, for instance, they're trying to put on as many as they can. You've got the same boxers facing, same boxers each time and things and stuff. It's, if it is in a different country, it's been shown at a different time where I think it loses contact with an audience over here. I think the argument is, well, yes, of course, you've got a huge, massive audience in China. You've got, pockets of big audiences across the world in other countries. But what do you physically lose by picking that tournament up and passing it over to someone else?
Yeah.
If it doesn't match with timing and things like that, and we're getting up at like 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to watch a match of the World Championships because it's in a different country, I don't mind doing that for a year, but am I gradually going to lose contact and interest and touch with it if that's a yearly thing? So I think for me, it just is, it's the heart of the sport. It's been there for so many years. It's been in this country for so many years. Someone said to me, well, it's traveled around before it went to the Crucible. But when you look at it, it traveled to Birmingham, London, places like that. So it's like, so I think we would lose so much, I think.
It's the biggest snooker tournament in the world. It's not a circus. You know what I mean? Like, we're not moving it so that we can see elephants dance and people tame tigers. We want our sport to be a serious sport that's globalized, where it has a location to be like, this is where you want to come. And at the moment, that's Sheffield. So if they move it, you want it to be to a place who have the same level of commitment that Sheffield has had for the last 50, 60 years, And if it is moved, it has to be moved for good reason. Like, I don't know how much money the World Championship makes year on year now, but there should be someone who does the economics at World Snooker who can say moving it would have this impact,
Yeah.
So unless that impact is massive.
There, when you're being offered a lot of money for something, isn't it? It's, it's obviously enticing, and it's obviously, if someone turned up at my house and said, "Oh, I'll give you so much to your car," and it was highly, more valued and everything else and stuff,
Yeah.
things, you're going to be obviously tempted. But is it a quick fix? And I really do think it's a quick fix. I think
Mm.
I wonder whether other countries that have been interested, whether they've got the same amount of interest because they've had a little bit of a taster of it in different ways.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's a sport. I think, yes, it gets promoted all the time as being in a really good place and having a great future. But I think it's actually quite a delicate sport that if you make the wrong move, you could greatly harm it and perhaps potentially harm it for good, really, or for at
I
least
absolutely agree. Yeah.
decades. So it's a sport that needs to kind of grow slowly, be looked after, and like you'd be looking after your favorite house plant, is water it, feed
Yeah,
it.
you got to nurture it. That's the word,
Yeah,
isn't it? You
no,
can't,
definitely.
we don't want to make any big decisions that are too risky.
No.
So yeah, I think you raised a lot of good points. Like I say, I'm with you. I think it should stay. But I'm also very aware that Sheffield have a role to play in this, and it's
Mm.
not just for snooker. I think
Yeah, very much.
I think Barry Hearn. Might be incorrect, and people might have different opinions of this. But if Saudi offered a deal that was worth 10 million more
Mm.
than Sheffield, but Sheffield were still willing to keep it and honour a long-term deal and show actual growth and
Mm.
development and evolution of snooker within Sheffield, I think he'd still take the Sheffield deal
Mm.
because I think he put prestige and history first.
Mm.
But I think it comes to that commitment. I think you have to see the commitment from Sheffield. And it might be a bit naive there. Barry Hearn might see 10 million and be like, yeah, let's rip that up. I don't know, that might be the case. But my opinion is, I think there's a lot of people in snooker. I think you can ask 128 professionals,
Mm.
and at least 100 of them say, as long as there's a long-term commitment, keep it in Sheffield.
I'd like to think so. I get that, obviously everyone wants, the best that they can have. And I know there's a mixed feeling in players, really, where there's some that goes, well, we need to move because I want more money. I get that.
Which I get. Like,
Yeah,
snooker's
yeah.
hard to live at the bottom.
Yeah. No,
Like,
of course.
especially looking
Um,
at the amateurs. So
yeah. But I think I can't see a reason why that can't be achieved in Sheffield. It might not be that quick fix and that, I don't know, £1 million in your bank straight away.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think for consistency, for stability, for especially for young players coming through, for that sport to still be there at the end of their career, I think it needs to be nurtured, like what you said, and Sheffield's the place to do it.
Yeah.
And I can't understand or see a reason why that can't grow from there, rather than probably what I would fear would be a quick fix of taking it somewhere else for a big, large pot of money, which might help out a few. It's a bit like the Spock thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, sort of thing. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's why I see it.
Um,
But yeah, no,
but
thanks.
yeah,
I
I think
think
you give us a very good summary, Matt.
yeah, it's it's interesting. I've learned so much out of just starting that petition that you can find at change.org. And just get your name down if you can. If you've got any interest in it at all, I just urge you to, because it's a starting point. It doesn't mean that anyone's dismissing, or it's not about dismissing ideas of it traveling around or anything like that. It's about showing an interest and a concern, and for the public to try to have some sort of say, whatever that is, in the future of what happens with the World Championships. So that's the main first step.
And the first thing you can do if you want lasting change and you're listening to this is just sign the petition. As long as you agree with what we said,
Yeah.
sign it.
Yeah.
Completely free, takes 2 seconds.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes up with a thing about like donating some money. Just, you haven't got to do that. Just skip that, ignore it. It's just put your signature down, and then you have to confirm it via email for it to be counted. It's so simple. Really simple thing to do. But yeah, no, thanks a lot for that. And I know at the moment, I think I've got a lot of people watching, as in the press, media, and individuals that are kind of just watching it as well. And I think the more the numbers kind of go up, it then gives them a little bit more power to go, okay, we've got to a point now where we can get a little bit involved and help as well. So yeah, for me, it's a must. It's got to be done. So change.org.
.com. And I assume you'll put the link with this when we share it on media.
Yeah, I'll try and do that as well. But it's all over my social media as well. I think
I know we can't get rid of it. Every second post, Matt.
I got blocked on X for, I think it was like half a day because I was like spamming it out too much. So yeah, if the other side of it is once you sign it, if you can share it, that helps me out a lot. Just don't do it like 1,000 times like I did in a day, and I think you're right. So right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Matt. Thank you for raising awareness.
All right, speak to you soon.
See ya.